Hey, what's happening everybody out there? My name is Jakejames Lugo and welcome to the channel. So today I'm decked out all in blue, as you guys can tell, because we're talking about a game today that isn't Castlevania. Okay, so the game we're talking about today is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and you're probably going to see me refer to this game being kind of like Castlevania a whole lot because there's reasons for this. So does Koji Igarashi still got that magic that we all love? Well, let's find out together. This is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night.
Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is an action game developed by Artplay and published by 505 Games. The team was led by Koji Igarashi, producer of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Bloodstained was the result of a successful Kickstarter campaign that blew up following Iga's departure from Konami. To many fans, Bloodstained is a spiritual successor to games like Symphony of the Night and other Castlevania titles made in a similar vein. But is it any different from the Castlevania series? Not really, especially since most of its design, story, and gameplay are almost everything Castlevania is, but without the name. The story focuses on a young woman named Miriam, a magic user who uses dark power derived from crystals called shards, which is eating away at her. These types of magic users are called shardbinders. In the 19th century, a dark castle emerges with hordes of demons that threaten the earth. This evil is led by another shardbinder called Gebel, an old friend from Miriam's past. With the help of her allies from the Alchemist Guild and others, Miriam is tasked with putting an end to Gebel's onslaught and ridding the world of demons. Any Castlevania fan will instantly recognize familiarities with the plot. A few name switches can't hide just how much is pulled from Iga's previous work. But does that make Bloodstained any less interesting to play through? I think not.
Now, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of stuff about Bloodstained Ritual of the Night that is pretty much Castlevania, just without the name. Everything from the characters, some of the different enemies you run into, the bosses, the locations, the items, and all these other different things are pretty much pulled directly from a Castlevania game. They're just presented in a different fashion and given different names. It's almost comical to the point where I feel like Koji Igarashi could have been hit with plagiarism or copyright infringement from Konami in different ways, because all this different stuff is just so similar to Castlevania Symphony of the Night or any one of the other Castlevania games that are very similar. Outside of that, if we're just going to focus on Bloodstained's main story and its plot, it's kind of shallow, to be honest with you guys. Much like how some of the other Castlevania games that Koji Igarashi has worked on, they're just not really deep, meaty stories, even though they have all this lore to pull from and kind of connect to and stuff. The story itself is just pretty basic. There's just this castle that appears, there's all these demons that are running around, and you have to go find a way to stop them and get rid of all this stuff before they consume the world. It's typical fanfare if you played any one of the Castlevania games that are similar to Symphony of the Night or Symphony of the Night itself. It's just pretty much, the same type of material or the same type of concepts that you would find in those games, but just brought into this game and kind of mixed around a little bit here and there. But essentially, it's pretty much the same. But what do I think about the characters? I think Miriam is pretty interesting. I think Zangetsu is pretty cool. Even though, again, they're a little bit more one-note or one-dimensional, you're not really looking for a deep, deep story here. They kind of just fit well with the rest of the game. And more importantly, all that type of stuff is really made to complement the gameplay. And speaking of which, let's talk about the gameplay of Bloodstained, which again, very similar to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, but it does have a couple little things here and there that make it stand on its own, which is admittedly kind of cool.
Okay, let's be real with this. Bloodstained's gameplay is identical to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, with a few aspects pulled from other Castlevania games. The map you explore within the castle, the shards you pick up, and the weapons and items you gather can be traced to their exact inspirations. But if you put that aside, Bloodstained mostly feels good to control and play through. There are many places to visit and monsters to fight while uncovering hidden secrets within the castle. Miriam is a little similar to some of the heroes from Castlevania, though her shard powers are exactly like Soma Cruz from Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. Much like Symphony of the Night, you'll have to gather different shards to unlock new abilities that will grant access to other parts of the castle. Most abilities you gain will come from defeating enemies, but occasionally you'll find a shard within those familiar looking posts that you could shatter for new powers. The more you gather, the more options you have at your disposal. If I'm being critical, however, some things about this feel very poorly designed. For example, gaining the ability to go underwater requires you to find and defeat a certain monster found within a specific area. Stuff like this could get very annoying when you have to find the next place you have to go to and have no idea what to do. The game gives subtle hints here and there, but not enough to prevent you from roaming around for hours looking for something that you may have missed. The castle is very large and will take a while to map out, so don't expect this to be a quick game. By the time I was done with everything, it took me about 15 hours to get through almost the entire castle. If you were hoping that Bloodstained will offer the same beats as Symphony of the Night did, then you'll be happy to know that it delivers. Everyone else hoping for something different, however, will be a little bit disappointed.
Okay, before we go any further with anything else, there is a couple problems I do want to touch on that I feel like are real big issues that I have to bring to you guys. Now, put down the pitchforks for just a second. Just hear me out, okay? Just hear me out, all right? There's some big issues that are with this game that are happening on all platforms, and I don't know really what the real cause is. It might be some programming like bugs here and there, but they're just recurring things that I just saw throughout my entire experience. The biggest recurring issue that I saw that happened constantly for no reason was that there were certain instances when I would go to pick up an item and I can't pick up the item after killing an enemy. Just for whatever reason, whenever I would kill an enemy and it would drop like some sort of crafting item, then normally I would go up to like this little bag and touch it to pick it up. Just for whatever reason, I couldn't pick it up when I did so. It would get like stuck in a corner or stuck on the floor and it looked like it's floating in the air, but every time I would go up to it, I couldn't pick up the item inside. The other thing that I also feel like is a huge issue is the load times and the frame skips that for whatever reason there as well. It's like every time like I would go to kill like a bunch of enemies or like the screen would get filled up, sometimes the screen would freeze up whether it's trying to process or load all the different effects at the same time, or again, like there was some sort of bug or glitch that was just messing with the game. It would happen a whole lot, especially towards the earlier portions of the game and even towards the middle and later portions of the game. Again, there was no reason for it to happen, it just kind of happened. Now getting back to the rest of the game, I do want to comment on like some of the stuff involving the crystals that you could gather. Some of those abilities are pretty cool. Again, it's a neat little kind of like harken back to like Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow or something. It's very similar to what Soma Cruz would do with the souls, but just this time it's actually crystals that you gather from the enemies. My only big issue, like I mentioned earlier, is that certain abilities that you need to get around the castle, you have to kill certain enemies in order to get them. And I think that's really cheap, I think that's really cheesy, and just elongates certain sections of the game that don't really need to be elongated. But even with some of those annoyances that were scattered throughout the game, the majority of my experience with Bloodstained was still pretty fun. It still felt like a game that was somewhat familiar, even though it was a new tale for me to experience. The other thing I do want to touch on very briefly is the crafting system, which I feel like is a little bit more elongated as well, and it didn't need to be so tedious as it was. Just going around trying to get items in order to craft certain bigger, better items that I could use later on. Some of that stuff is really useless, and I just felt like, again, I'm running around trying to do all this stuff, trying to get the good stuff, but it's just being really tedious, being really annoying, just making me get these items in like a specific section of the map. It's like, come on now. That could have been designed just a little bit better. So with that gameplay stuff out of the way, let's talk about some of the other stuff that is really unique to the Castlevania series that also gets implemented into Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and that's the multiple endings and some of the boss fights too, which I have a lot to say about all this.
So about those boss fights and multiple endings, like Iga's previous work, the boss fights in here are wild and fit well within the Castlevania motif. My biggest problem with them, however, is how they feel like brick walls to your progress. Though they look good, these bosses will take out a huge chunk of your health with every hit and knock you far back when you least expect it. If you go in underprepared, you're going to get killed pretty easily and knocked back to the last save point. I feel like there's some balance issues here, which hopefully gets tweaked in any new updates after the release. Besides this, Bloodstained has multiple endings depending on what you do and how much you explore of the castle. For the bad ending, all you need to do is defeat Gebel when you run into him towards the end of the game, leading to a haphazard ending that doesn't even give you the end credits. However, if you continue exploring the castle and reach new areas on the map, as well as defeat a few extra bosses for super helpful items, you can see an extra part of the game that would otherwise be inaccessible. This is exactly like Symphony of the Night, but with a few less steps. Getting the Zangetsu sword and cutting the red moon that appears in the fight with Gebel will get you closer to the true final boss and the true ending of the game. It's not tough to reach this if you've been playing for a while, but without reading about it beforehand, I feel like it'd be impossible to know going into the fight. I didn't notice any hints to reach this before certain boss fights, which could be a little bit frustrating. I also would have liked to see this kind of thing done a little bit differently instead of being so similar to how it was done in Symphony of the Night. Like, give me a different type of plot twist or any sort of thing that made Bloodstained feel a little bit more unique. Otherwise, it's just another plot twist that's very similar to that of Symphony of the Night. But does it provide a satisfying conclusion, however? Yes, it does, but I still feel like it could have been done differently.
Now, not all the boss fights are all that bad. There is a couple of them that are pretty cool looking and well designed. But every once in a while, there's those big brick walls that you run into that completely impede your progress, and it can be very annoying trying to get around. There was more than a few times when I had to deal with something like that while I was playing Bloodstained. But what really kind of offsets all of this is that sometimes the bosses themselves deal a ridiculous amount of damage and probably don't take enough from you, depending on your equipment and your whole setup and stuff. Again, this is like a common practice in a Castlevania style game, especially one built like Symphony of the Night. You're constantly exploring, you're constantly kind of like, feeling around where you could go and where you could actually get new stuff, and then coming back later in order to discover new things or reach new areas. That's a common practice, and that's what makes these games so appealing. But still, balance is a key part of this stuff, especially when it comes to the boss fights. Now, obviously, we have to talk about the multiple endings. My biggest issue is that it just kind of copies what Symphony of the Night does. Granted, this is what people wanted with the Kickstarter project, this is what people were really kind of hoping that Koji would do, but still, I felt like Bloodstained could have kind of put a little bit more of a twist on this, or at least done things a little bit more different so it doesn't feel like it's almost just carbon copying what Symphony of the Night really did. So let's say you completely finished up Bloodstained. You got the good ending, you did all this stuff, you slayed a bunch of demons and all this jazz. What else is there to do in Bloodstained Ritual of the Night? Is there anything else that's cool there? Actually, believe it or not, yeah, there is a couple little neat things here and there that really kind of more speak to Castlevania fans, but there's still cool additions to have.
There is some post-game content to enjoy after finishing Bloodstained's main story. If you get the good ending, you could get almost all the bonus content, including a boss rush mode and speedrun mode. But that isn't the only stuff you can find. There's plenty of nods and references to Castlevania scattered throughout, some in the form of bonus boss fights that are eerily resembling certain Castlevania characters. There's also an entirely 8-bit style level that resembles an NES Castlevania game, with retro-styled enemies and more. It's short-lived, but it's still a cool bonus for fans of the genre. You can also play as Zangetsu, but only as part of a free DLC update coming out after the release. Other things like the sound test are here too, but what's interesting is how Iga got the voices of David Hayter and Robbie Belgrade to do special voice messages in the sound test menu. For those that don't know, that's the voice of Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid and the original voice actor of Alucard from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's a very cool surprise for those who love those games that will accent your experience with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night.
Dumb, but cool. What a horrible night to have a box. Curse. I meant curse.
There's something written here about a woman named Castlevania. Who could she be? Turned down for what? Oh, hi, Cubby. Your human Steve loves you very much and has nyum-nyums for you. Om nyum-nyum.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this is actually kind of cool because it's just weird and just funny and just like goofy to think that Solid Snake and Alucard from Castlevania Symphony of the Night are just kind of, you know, combining their talents into one game. It's just something funny. And then the model that they got for the voice actor for Alucard is just even more hilarious. I mean, look at this thing. I mean, just look at him. He looks like a bootleg Alucard or like an Alucard Diet Coke. You know what I'm saying? It's just funny. Just listening to him talk and just looking at that just made me laugh every time I saw him.
Well, congratulations. You got yourself caught. Now, what's the next step of your master plan?
So can I really recommend that you play Bloodstained Ritual of the Night? Is this a game that everybody's really going to enjoy? If you're someone that loves the genre or loves the Castlevania series, you're really going to get a kick out of this. And I'm pretty sure that this is the game that you exactly wanted, especially if you funded this on Kickstarter. There's a lot of similarities between this and Symphony of the Night. There's just like one-to-one comparisons that you could draw, but even so, everything comes together rather nicely, despite some of the little issues I had with the bugs, the glitches, and a few things that I felt like could have been designed a little better. Do those things ruin the total experience? Not by any stretch of the imagination. They could be worked upon and actually make this experience even more better than what it already is. Anyway guys, those are my thoughts on Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I've been waiting a long time to play this game. I remember seeing this game when it first got announced when the Kickstarter went live and playing this game at different events like E3, so it's kind of cool to see everything kind of come full circle. So this is really special to me as a fan of the genre and a fan of the Castlevania series and a fan of Koji Igarashi. Again, I love Symphony of the Night. You guys, if you haven't already seen my review of that game, you definitely should. I just touched on that game and talked about it a whole bunch, and it's great to see a lot of that stuff kind of make its way into this game. But those are just my opinions about Bloodstained. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Tell me, do you like Bloodstained Ritual of the Night? Do you think it's maybe a little bit too similar to Symphony of the Night? Talk to me about this game and some of your opinions and put it in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos just like this one. I have a ton of reviews, a ton of vlogs, a ton of podcast episodes, a lot of great stuff that I know you guys are gonna love. And also, please don't forget to check out my Patreon page. Links in the description box below. At the $1 level or higher, you're going to get a ton of exclusive content, including exclusive vlogs, early access to new videos like this review right here, a bunch of podcast exclusives. There's a ton of stuff that you guys definitely need to check out. I'm putting a whole bunch of content on there I know you guys will love, so check out my Patreon page, link in the description box below. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out, and stay epic, everybody.
Thanks for watching this video, everyone. Make sure you guys check out some of these other videos in the boxes after the credits, and don't forget to visit my Patreon page via the annotations for more exclusive content. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Peace out, and stay epic, everybody.